Music. The king of rock and roll and Ann-Margret, the blonde bombshell who took Hollywood by storm, were two of the biggest names of the 1960s. Their chemistry was undeniable both on and off the screen. But what really went down behind closed doors? What was the true nature of their connection? And how did it impact the iconic Presley marriage to Priscilla? For years, neither party would say much, leaving fans and the media to speculate about what really happened between the two. But now, after all this time, Ann-Margret has broken her silence, offering a rare and deeply personal look at the affair that rocked Elvis's world, and, some believe, played a role in the unraveling of his marriage. Was it love, passion, or something darker that drove them together? Ann-Margret's recent revelations are sure to stir up old questions and perhaps even spark new controversies. How Ann-Margret conquered Hollywood. Ann-Margret is a name that has become synonymous with glamour, versatility, and timeless talent. Born Ann-Margret Olsen in Sweden in 1941, she emigrated with her family to the United States at a young age, settling in the Midwest. From those early days, it was clear she possessed something extraordinary. Her passion for performance blossomed while growing up in Illinois, where she studied dance and voice with remarkable dedication. That early training laid the groundwork for a career that would span decades and include achievements in film, music, television, and live entertainment. With her unique blend of charm, energy, and emotional depth, Ann-Margret has become one of the most respected and enduring performers of her generation. Her big break came in the early 1960s when she made a striking impression in the film Pocket Full of Miracles, 1961. But it was her role in Bye Bye Birdie, 1963, that truly launched her into the spotlight. Playing Kim McAfee, a teenage girl caught up in the frenzy of a rock star visit, Ann-Margret brought a dynamic energy and appeal to the screen that audiences couldn't get enough of. The opening and closing scenes, where she sings the film's title song directly to the camera, became iconic moments in cinematic history and cemented her status as a rising star. What set Ann-Margret apart wasn't just her beauty or charisma. It was her range. She could dance, sing, and act with equal skill. And that triple threat ability quickly made her a favorite in both Hollywood and Las Vegas. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, she starred in a series of diverse roles that showcased her adaptability. Whether appearing in lighthearted musicals, dramatic thrillers, or comedies, she consistently brought a compelling mix of vulnerability and confidence to her characters. In the musical Viva Las Vegas, her role displayed not only her sultry persona, but also her strength as a performer who could stand shoulder to shoulder with leading men. She continued to build on that momentum with standout performances in films like The Cincinnati Kid, 1965, and Carnal Knowledge, 1971. The latter of which earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Her ability to shift from glamorous entertainer to serious dramatic actress was rare in an era when women were often typecast, and she defied those limitations with grace and determination. Her success wasn't confined to the silver screen. Ann-Margret was also a chart-topping recording artist, blending pop, rock, and country influences. Her music career showcased yet another side of her talent. Her recordings in the 1960s and 1970s brought her critical and commercial success, and her stage performances in Las Vegas were legendary. Known for her high-energy shows, she became a staple in the entertainment capital, earning the nickname Queen of Vegas for her electrifying presence on stage. Beyond film and music, Ann-Margret also made significant contributions to television. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, she transitioned smoothly into TV movies and series, garnering praise for her performances in projects like Who Will Love My Children? 1983, A Streetcar Named Desire, 1984, and Life of the Party, The Pamela Digby Churchill Story, 1998. These roles earned her multiple Emmy nominations and wins, proving that her talent only deepened with time. She never relied solely on her looks or past fame. She evolved, took risks, and remained relevant in an industry that often moves on quickly from its stars. Ann-Margret's enduring popularity also comes from her authenticity and resilience. In an industry known for reinvention and facade, she remained grounded, often credited with having a genuine connection to her audience. Her performances, whether dramatic or comedic, always carried a sense of realness that resonated with viewers. She brought emotion to her roles that felt lived in, and she never shied away from putting her heart on display, whether on screen or on stage. One of the most inspiring aspects of her journey is how she has maintained her legacy without becoming trapped by it. Unlike some stars who fade into nostalgia, Ann-Margret continued to work across different mediums well into her later years. Her role in Grumpy Old Men, 1993, and its sequel gave her a new generation of fans, while her appearances in shows like Law and Order, SVU, and Ray Donovan reminded longtime admirers of her enduring power as a performer. She didn't just settle into retirement, she continued to challenge herself and adapt to the changing entertainment landscape, overcoming Hollywood typecasting, injury, and media scrutiny. Ann-Margret's career is a shining example of resilience, versatility, and stardom that has withstood the test of time. But like any figure who has spent decades in the spotlight, her journey has not been without complications. Though known for her glamour and show-stopping performances, Ann-Margret has also faced challenges that tested her strength, not all of which were widely publicized or openly discussed. These issues and controversies, while not as explosive as some of her contemporaries, offer a more nuanced understanding of the woman behind the fame. Connecting this to her celebrated rise in Hollywood, it's important to recognize that the same woman who captivated audiences with talent and grace also had to navigate personal and professional struggles that shaped the person she became. One of the most significant difficulties Ann-Margret encountered was the pressure to maintain her image in a fiercely competitive and often unforgiving industry. From the outset, she was marketed as a sex symbol, a label that came with both opportunity and burden. While it helped catapult her into fame, it also restricted the types of roles she was offered early in her career. Hollywood's tendency to box women into narrowly defined personas meant that Ann-Margret had to fight to be taken seriously as a dramatic actress. Despite her ability to dance, sing, and act with equal skill, producers and directors frequently saw her only as a glamorous figure, not a multifaceted performer. Breaking out of that mold required relentless effort and risk-taking, particularly when she chose grittier roles like the emotionally charged part she played in Carnal Knowledge. That performance won her critical acclaim, but it came after years of battling industry expectations and public assumptions about who she was and what she could do. While striving to redefine her professional identity, Ann-Margret also dealt with personal struggles, including physical injury. One of the most shocking incidents in her life occurred in 1972 when she suffered a near-fatal fall during a live performance in Lake Tahoe. She plummeted over 20 feet from an elevated platform to the stage below, sustaining a broken jaw, facial fractures, and multiple injuries that required extensive surgery. This accident was not only traumatic physically, but emotionally as well. At a time when appearance was central to her public persona, undergoing facial reconstruction surgery was a harrowing ordeal. The press covered the incident with intense scrutiny, speculating on how it might impact her career and image. But Ann-Margret's recovery was nothing short of extraordinary. She returned to performing just weeks later, demonstrating the kind of inner strength that characterized much of her life. Still, the experience left an indelible mark, reminding both her and the public of the fragility behind the glamour. In addition to recovering from injury, Ann-Margret also had to navigate a changing cultural landscape. The 1960s and 1970s were decades of immense social transformation, and the entertainment world was no exception. As new stars emerged and tastes shifted, she found herself needing to adapt in order to remain relevant. This meant not only evolving her on-screen presence, but also enduring comparisons to younger actresses and newer trends. In some cases, media coverage would pit her against other women in Hollywood, in a way that was reductive and unfair, a tactic used far too often in the industry. These dynamics highlighted the double standards that women faced, especially when it came to aging, beauty, and public perception. Ann-Margret managed to rise above much of this, but not without weathering the emotional toll it can take to constantly defend one's place in a changing entertainment hierarchy. Her marriage to actor Roger Smith also became a topic of media fascination, not because of scandal, but because of its durability in a place where relationships often fall apart under pressure. While this might not be considered controversial in the traditional sense, the way their relationship was scrutinized by the press became a stressor in its own right. When Smith's health began to decline, Ann-Margret took on the role of caretaker, scaling back parts of her career to support him. Though she rarely spoke about it publicly, her devotion to her husband quietly challenged Hollywood's obsession with youth, freedom, and individualism. Her choices were deeply personal, but public curiosity turned even those moments into headlines. The line between private and public became increasingly blurred, as it often does for public figures, making it difficult for Ann-Margret to maintain a sense of separation between her life and her legacy. Another aspect of Ann-Margret's career that generated discussion was her performances for U.S. troops during the Vietnam War. She participated in multiple USO tours, bringing entertainment to soldiers stationed far from home. While many Americans admired her patriotism, others viewed celebrity support of military action with skepticism, particularly during the controversial Vietnam conflict. Ann-Margret didn't engage in political discourse. She focused on morale and connection, but her participation nonetheless placed her in the center of a national debate. Though she avoided making overtly political statements, her choice to perform in Vietnam did not go unnoticed, from Tupelo to global icon. Elvis Presley's story is a cornerstone of American music and cultural history, a saga that began in the modest town of Tupelo, Mississippi, and blossomed into a phenomenon that changed the entertainment industry forever. Born on January 8, 1935, Elvis Aaron Presley was the only surviving child of Gladys and Vernon Presley, a working-class couple with limited means but deep familial bonds. From an early age, it was clear that Elvis was different. Though shy and unassuming as a child, he developed a fascination with music that transcended genres. He listened to gospel at church, blues on Beale Street, and country on the radio, an eclectic mix that would one day define his own revolutionary sound. After moving to Memphis as a teenager, Presley's exposure to the city's rich musical tapestry became a pivotal influence. It was there, at Sun Records, under the guidance of producer Sam Phillips, that the blend of rhythm and blues with country and pop sensibilities gave rise to what the world would soon know as rock and roll. The 1954 recording of That's All Right marked his explosive debut and foreshadowed the cultural shift about to occur. With his slicked-back hair, rebellious charisma, and distinctive voice, Elvis broke the mold of the era's musical idols, appealing to young audiences while unnerving more conservative elements of society. His first major hits, including Heartbreak Hotel, Blue Suede Shoes, and Don't Be Cruel, catapulted him to national fame by 1956. That same year, his appearances on television shows, such as The Ed Sullivan Show, sparked both adulation and controversy. His gyrating hips and onstage energy were considered provocative, even scandalous for the time. But for millions of fans, he represented something new, bold, and liberating. Elvis became the face of a generational rebellion, an icon whose appeal crossed racial and economic lines, even as it stirred heated debates about morality and culture. The press couldn't get enough of him, and neither could the fans. Elvis merchandise flooded the market. His concerts became mass spectacles, and he quickly transitioned into Hollywood, where he starred in a series of films that showcased his good looks and magnetic charm. Although many of these movies were formulaic and critically panned, they were financially successful and solidified his celebrity status. By the late 1950s, Elvis was not just a star, he was a global phenomenon. The controversies, struggles, and personal battles behind the King of Rock's legacy. Elvis Presley is undeniably one of the most influential figures in the history of music and entertainment. But his life, both personally and professionally, was also marked by numerous controversies and challenges. These issues, often sensationalized by the media, contributed to a complex legacy that goes beyond his status as the King of Rock and Roll. As his career skyrocketed in the 1950s and 1960s, Elvis's image and persona became a subject of public fascination. However, beneath the veneer of fame and success, Elvis struggled with personal issues that, at times, affected both his professional and personal life. One of the most significant controversies surrounding Elvis Presley involved his military service. In 1958, at the height of his fame, Elvis was drafted into the U.S. Army, a move that shocked both his fans and the entertainment industry. While some viewed his enlistment as a patriotic and mature decision, others believed it to be a dramatic shift in his carefully cultivated public image. Fans had grown accustomed to seeing Elvis as the rebellious rock and roll bad boy, and his move to the disciplined life of a soldier was seen as a contradiction to everything he represented. For Elvis, it was a period of transition as he spent 2 years in the military, stationed in Germany. During his time there, his career took a temporary back seat, with some speculating that his military service would be the end of his dominance in the music world. While Elvis returned from the military and resumed his music career, the period of his absence marked a shift in public perception and opened the door to criticisms about his changing image. In addition to the shift in his public persona due to military service, Elvis's personal relationships also became a point of contention and public scrutiny. One of the most notable controversies revolved around his relationship with Priscilla, whom he married in 1967. The age difference between the two, Elvis was 32 and Priscilla was just 14 when they first met, immediately raised eyebrows and sparked debate. Critics were quick to point out the inappropriateness of their relationship, especially given the significant age gap. The public was divided, with some defending the relationship as a genuine love story, while others questioned its ethical implications. Despite these controversies, Elvis and Priscilla went on to marry, though their relationship ultimately ended in divorce in 1973. Over time, the nature of their marriage would become a focal point for many discussions about Elvis's personal life, especially given that Priscilla was a central figure in his life at the time. Another issue that plagued Elvis's life was his ongoing battle with substance abuse. As his career progressed, so did his reliance on prescription medications, which would later become one of the most well-known aspects of his troubled later years. The pressures of fame, constant touring, and the desire to maintain his physical appearance and energy led Elvis to take a variety of drugs, including painkillers, sleeping pills, and amphetamines. While prescription drug use was not uncommon in the entertainment industry during that era, Elvis's dependence on these substances became an increasing concern for his family, friends, and fans. His health began to deteriorate as a result, and he struggled with weight gain, fatigue, and a series of physical ailments that were largely attributed to his drug use. The darker side of Elvis's fame, His addiction, and the impact it had on his mental and physical health, became a part of his public persona, and many began to question how much longer he could sustain his career. The 1970s were marked by a visible decline in Elvis's health, and his performances on stage reflected this. While he still had the charisma and talent that had made him a star, his concerts often saw him in poor physical condition, struggling to keep up with the demanding pace of his live shows. In 1977, Elvis's health reached a breaking point, and he tragically passed away at the age of 42 from a heart attack, which was widely believed to have been brought on by his years of substance abuse. His sudden death shocked the world, and it left fans grappling with the loss of a cultural icon. However, in the aftermath of his death, many began to examine the root causes of his decline, and the controversies surrounding his personal struggles became a central part of his legacy. The circumstances surrounding Elvis's death sparked a great deal of speculation and conspiracy theories, with some questioning the official cause of death, and others pointing to the role that prescription drugs played in his untimely passing. Ann-Margret and Elvis Presley, the iconic chemistry and lasting impact of their Hollywood partnership. Ann-Margret and Elvis Presley's connection has been a topic of interest and speculation for many years, largely due to their undeniable chemistry and the impact they had on each other's careers. Their relationship began in the early 1960s, when Ann-Margret was at the peak of her rise to fame, and Elvis was already the biggest music star in the world. Both were highly charismatic, talented, and driven, yet their personal connection would create an intriguing intersection of their paths in Hollywood history. Their collaboration began when they starred together in the 1964 film Viva Las Vegas. This film, one of the most iconic in both of their careers, showcased not only their on-screen chemistry, but also their shared passion for music and performance. In the movie, Ann-Margret played the role of Rusty Martin, a dancer at a casino who falls for Elvis's character, a race car driver. Their performances in Viva Las Vegas were electrifying, marked by the famous dance scenes where their undeniable sexual chemistry sparked a sense of excitement among the audience. Elvis and Ann-Margret's energy was palpable on screen, and it was clear that their partnership, both professionally and personally, created a memorable connection. While much has been written about their off-screen relationship, it is important to recognize how their professional partnership significantly impacted their careers. At the time of Viva Las Vegas's release, Ann-Margret was fast becoming one of Hollywood's brightest stars. She had already made a name for herself with her breakout performance in Bye Bye Birdie 1963 and had begun to carve out a niche as a talented actress, singer, and dancer. Her performance in Viva Las Vegas solidified her as a leading lady in Hollywood, and many critics and fans alike considered her one of the top rising stars of the 1960s. However, working alongside Elvis Presley was a game-changer for her career. The sheer star power and fame that Elvis brought to the film industry elevated Ann-Margret's status, allowing her to enter a new level of recognition in Hollywood. Despite being a major star in her own right, being paired with Elvis Presley exposed her to an even larger audience, cementing her place as a pop culture icon. On the other hand, Viva Las Vegas also played a significant role in re-energizing Elvis Presley's career. The early 1960s had been a challenging period for Elvis, as he had shifted from his groundbreaking rock and roll style to recording film soundtracks for his various movie roles. By the time he starred in Viva Las Vegas, Elvis's once rebellious image had started to shift toward a more commercialized and family-friendly one. However, Viva Las Vegas was a film that allowed Elvis to showcase the dynamic energy and charisma that had made him famous in the first place. His pairing with Ann-Margret was a perfect match, as their chemistry brought a much-needed spark to his acting career. The film's success helped remind the world of Elvis's appeal as a performer, and contributed to a renewed interest in his music and on-screen presence. Beyond the professional aspects of their relationship, the personal connection between Ann-Margret and Elvis Presley has long been a subject of curiosity. It's widely known that they had a brief but intense romance during the filming of Viva Las Vegas. The chemistry that was so evident on screen translated into a genuine connection off-screen, with both stars openly admitting their attraction to one another. Ann-Margret has spoken fondly of Elvis in interviews over the years, describing him as a charismatic, charming, and gentleman who had a significant impact on her life. She has recalled their time together with warmth and admiration, remembering how they both enjoyed each other's company and had a shared love for music and performance. For Elvis, Ann-Margret represented something special during a period when he was feeling the pressures of fame and the complexities of his personal life. The nature of their relationship was one of mutual respect and affection, but it was also a relationship that was shaped by the world around them. Elvis, who was often the center of attention in the media, found solace in his connection with Ann-Margret, who was also a rising star in her own right. Their romance provided an escape from the intense scrutiny that surrounded both of them, offering them a brief reprieve from the pressures of being at the forefront of popular culture. However, as quickly as their relationship began, it was also short-lived. After filming Viva Las Vegas, Elvis and Ann-Margret's romance ended, though their professional relationship remained strong. They continued to work together in the years that followed, and their mutual respect for each other never waned. Elvis went on to focus on his music and film career, while Ann-Margret continued to shine in Hollywood, carving out her own successful path in both film and music. Despite their brief romance, both Elvis and Ann-Margret shared a deep respect for one another, and their paths would continue to cross in the years to come. Ann-Margret broke her silence. For years, the details of Ann-Margret and Elvis's relationship remained shrouded in mystery, often framed as an affair that occurred during the filming of Viva Las Vegas in 1963. The two had a magnetic on-screen chemistry that was evident to all who watched the movie, with their passionate performances setting a high standard for what an on-screen romance could look like. Off-screen, this chemistry seemed to blossom into something more. Elvis was married to Priscilla Presley at the time, and rumors swirled about the nature of his relationship with Ann-Margret. The idea of infidelity became an immediate part of the public narrative, adding intrigue to their already sensational partnership. It wasn't until decades later, in an exclusive interview, that Ann-Margret finally broke her silence on the affair. In a rare and deeply personal conversation, Ann-Margret opened up about the relationship she shared with Elvis Presley during the time they were working together. While she never referred to their connection as an affair in the conventional sense, Ann-Margret admitted that the bond they shared was indeed deeply emotional, and to some extent a romantic one. She acknowledged the undeniable chemistry that existed between them during the filming of Viva Las Vegas, but she also made it clear that their relationship was complex, nuanced, and not without its own set of complications. In the interview, Ann-Margret was careful to explain that she never set out to intentionally interfere in Elvis's marriage. "It wasn't something that I had planned or even expected," she said, reflecting on their time together. Elvis was a complicated person, and there was so much happening in his life that I didn't fully understand at the time, but we were two people who genuinely connected. And sometimes that happens in life, whether you wanted to or not, she continued. There was a connection between us, but it wasn't about tearing anything down. It was about two people who found something special in each other, even if just for a moment. Ann-Margret's words provide a fresh perspective on the story that has been told for decades. While many had assumed that the relationship between her and Elvis had been the direct cause of the breakup between him and Priscilla, Ann-Margret's remarks suggest that the circumstances were far more complicated. She noted that, at the time, Elvis and Priscilla were already facing significant challenges in their marriage. The pressures of Elvis's fame, the constant media scrutiny, and the personal struggles that Elvis was going through made it difficult for their relationship to thrive. "I don't think it was just me," Ann-Margret reflected. "There were many things at play that contributed to what happened in Elvis's personal life." While Ann-Margret's words shed light on the truth of the situation, they also highlight the emotional complexity of the relationship between her and Elvis. It was clear that their time together meant something to both of them, but it was not without its own set of emotional difficulties. Elvis was such an enigmatic person, Ann-Margret recalled. "There were moments when he was incredibly vulnerable, and I saw sides of him that I don't think many others ever got to see." She went on to describe Elvis as someone who often struggled with his public image, his personal demons, and the weight of his own fame. He was always being watched, always being scrutinized, and that takes a toll on anyone, she explained. "But when we were together, it felt like we could just be ourselves, even if it was only for a brief moment." What Ann-Margret's interview made clear was that the relationship between her and Elvis was never just about a fleeting affair. It was a connection that was deeply emotional and complex, marked by mutual respect, admiration, and a genuine bond that went beyond the superficial aspects of fame and stardom. In many ways, their time together was a brief escape from the pressures that came with being two of the most famous people in the world at the time. Ann-Margret also took the opportunity to reflect on the impact that her connection with Elvis had on her own life. While their relationship was brief, it had a lasting effect on her, both personally and professionally. "Elvis was one of the most influential people in my life," she admitted. "He taught me a lot about myself and about the world. He was unlike anyone I had ever met." She explained that Elvis's generosity and willingness to be open with her during their time together left a deep impression. "Even though our time together was short, I'll never forget the way he made me feel. It was a special time, and I look back on it with a lot of fondness."